The one of one is missing.
I knew something was up.
Pop, that's almost twice as much going for the same price.
I just freaking love that rated rookie logo.
Doing more buying.
Which one of these 5 quarterbacks has the worst set of pass catchers to throw the football to?
Guess how much I sniped this for an auction?
Number to 5, you dirty animal.
I'm telling you, these optic on-card autos are money.
Football card collecting and investing. His name is Andy. My name is Carter. Big shout out to the NoOffSeason.com network. Everybody's so fired up after the National. I set up at a show in Shreveport, Louisiana. Andy was wheeling and dealing online. Andy, we're one day closer to the football season, baby, and the hype cycle is here.
Hype cycle is here, man. Training camp is here, and prices have gone up pretty insane, man. Some of the prices that I'm looking at, like $2,000 for a CJ Stroud Silver Prism PSA 10. Or I mean, that was a Joe Burrow. The CJ Stroud was $1,000. Stand corrected. But those are crazy price increases for the elite quarterbacks, Prism Silver in the NFL, Carter. What I really want to know is insights from the National. If only we had someone that was there in deep, man, rubbing elbows with all the big-time hobbyists and taking in all the sports card strategy insights from the National.
Yeah, let's bring him in, Mr. Paul Hickey. You know him as, like I said, the most underrated football card or just sports card content creator. Paul Hickey was like bumping elbows with Gary V, sports card investor himself, Jeff Wilson. Paul, just initially, your thoughts on the National. Let people know the perspective of somebody who was actually there and try to explain it best to people who weren't able to go.
Andy, Carter, first of all, love you guys. Great to be here. My favorite show is the Football Card Quest. So let's get it. I'm going to try to break things down for you guys today because, back from the National. I'm always learning, man. And I was telling you guys before the show, I've been to a lot of card shows since I moved back from Spain. I've been hitting up the Nashville show, the Dallas show, Culture Collision, all sorts of shows. And the National, I'm no stranger to the National. I don't have as many Nationals under my belt as you do, Carter, but it's because I started just 3 years ago going to the National. But I've gone in the last 3 years. And yeah, man, it's very different. Card shows in general, especially the National, are very different from what we do at the NoOffSeason.com network, right? You know, NoOffSeason.com helps people make money flipping sports cards really from their desk, from their home, from their phone, right? Trying to formulate what cards to buy that are going to go up and calculating the fees that you might pay on all the different marketplaces and that you might, calculating your shipping, your tax, all that stuff, making sure that you're going to profit. That's what Andy does. That's what you guys do at the Football Card Quest too. So whether it's raw to grade or whether it's already graded, we're trying to flip online, if you will, and make money based on selling markers. Maybe it's a spike week. Maybe it's somebody's value rising due to a trade. Trade rumors, Devontae Adams, right?
Yeah.
So card shows are very different. Card show culture. What I've learned, Carter, is that there is a contingent, a large contingent of very savvy individuals. And essentially what they do is they throw out all the stuff that we talk about. They don't care about the player. They really don't even care about the card. In fact, you want to talk about like a true RPA of a top player? They don't even really want to talk about that. Why? Because there's only 99 of them. And there might not be comps. What these people want at card shows, they want comps. They want recent sales data. Why? Because the game they play is they go into alt or market movers or card ladder or 130 point. Maybe it's the Slab Hawk one day. Maybe they'll be bringing up the Slab Hawk app. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a liquid card that is frequently comped. And the more honest ones are gonna make offers based on, the average of the most recent 5 legitimate sales, right? And the slimier ones, we know like some people are legit, some people are a little slimy, and there's everyone in between, right? Everybody has their moments. The slimier ones are going to say, well, this one only did X, I can only go off the lowest comp. Long story short, they're going to make you an offer at whatever percentage of comps that they're most comfortable with. Sometimes it's as low as like 65%. Sometimes it's as high as 95%. It all depends on what they think they can move it for at the show. They're not holding anything. They're moving it at the show. So some of these people at the shows leading up to the National, where it's easier to buy tables, right? It's pretty easy to buy a table at any show other than the National. And so what they're doing at those shows is a lot of them are trying to set up as dealers or squat with a dealer friend of theirs.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw some of this weekend where I was set up, but not obviously to this level.
Yeah, and so I'm interested to see how the Shreveport show went for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, essentially what happens is whether they're walking around with their cases, whether they're hitting up trade nights, or whether they're sitting in the hallway and just setting their cards out, or walking up to dealers or squatting at a dealer friend of theirs, what they're trying to do is buy. They're trying to buy. They would rather buy in bulk, but they're only looking at liquid cards. I was shocked at how many people looked at my bigger cards and just passed. They're like, I love the card, but I can't move it today. I'm like, okay, you have to move it today. You don't, you have no interest in holding it for like a month. It's going to go up in a month. They're like, no interest. We got to move it today. So they're just playing the numbers game, man. And I want to, I'll stop there. I just want to throw that out there. It's happening at the National. You don't need a table at the National to play this game. There's probably 3 to 5 different sort of hacks or ways to be able to get in and do it without even setting up as a vendor at the National.
Yeah. So I want to get back into that here in just a second, but specifically from your experience, because you cover every sport, but let's just focus in on football cards. When you say liquid cards, me and Andy use that phrase all the time, and we share what our liquid cards are. What were the liquid cards to you from the football standpoint?
Yeah, people are picking up, your Prism-based PSA 10s, your Prism Silver PSA 10s, your Optic's huge because it's a little bit cheaper, right? But it's still got the appeal. So your Optic-based PSA 10s, Optic Hollows, anything serial number, like the Prism Pandoras are hot, right? Like everyone's looking at the out of 400 Prism Pandora because it looks sick too. So, people will look at like a red sparkle Prism, even if it's like a PSA 8, like they're kind of drooling at like a red sparkle Prism PSA 8 because they're like, ooh, I think they think they can get it, for like $20 or $30, right? Depending on the player. And then they can try to move it and just try to make they're savvy. Like they know the players, they know the cards, but they're less concerned with getting, say, an Anthony Richardson downtown. And they'd almost rather have like a Justin Herbert Optic Hollow, for example.
Right. Yeah, Andy, I actually experienced the same thing as well. Like I moved into one of my favorite Jaden cards and into a Bryce Young Silver Prism. So yeah, it seems, Paul, to get very specific, it seems like silver prisms and just colored prisms are in that set liquidity. Would you agree with that?
For sure. And I mean, people in the live chat are throwing out color match. That's true. That's absolutely true. But I think it depends if it's too low serial numbered at the show. It's counterintuitive. We think as online flippers, we think, oh yeah, like we want a color match, we want a lower serial numbered. Those are the cards that'll move of the players that we're prospecting. And those are the cards with the highest upside online because you need to beat the fees and everything like that. But at a show, they just want something that they can comp out quickly. So it could be anything. It could be a mosaic. I mean, we don't consider mosaic necessarily desirable unless it's a short print or a super short print. But I mean, you've got guys making these moves with just really low dollar cards because they can move them fast.
It's interesting, Paul, because what I've seen on the eBay sold and like looking here on Slabhawk is that a lot of the base cards, so like base optic, base prism, base mosaic, the PSA 10s, they sell a lot, they transact a lot, but there's not been a lot of significant price movement. Of course, we're in the off season, right? So that definitely plays a role. But when you look at the silver prism market, to me, it seems like that is becoming the new gold standard go-to card for everybody once that base silver prism rookie card, because I've seen price increases for not just CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow, but Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, like Kyle Pitts, like all these skill position guys as well. Their base silver prism, especially in a PSA 10 grade, has gone up over the course. And I don't know if that's an impact to the national, or do you think that is an impact to the national, or do you think that's what you're kind of seeing is the prism silver is a new gold standard?
I think, yeah, I mean, first of all, I totally agree with you on the silver prism. I think it has probably the best entry point for most of us from a buying standpoint. And you can find them. It's like this perfect mix of like, you can find them, but they still have the upside of a lot of the cards that are harder to find. I think it's a pattern with football at the end of July every year. So I think the reason why football is hot at the national isn't necessarily because it's the national, but because it's the end of July. And so it kind of coincides with everyone trying to get these cards. So I totally agree with you on the Prism Silver. I see the pattern that you're talking about with not only Prism Silver being the new gold standard, but yes, like every year around the end of July, that's when those cards start to go up. Now, one thing I want to throw out too, because a lot of people might be thinking, well, like if I don't go to card shows all the time, I'm kind of like you guys. Like I don't go to card shows all the time. We have families. We have we can't be going to card shows all the time. I want to try to go to one every quarter. That's my goal. But what do I do in the meantime? And then what do I do with the cards that I acquire not at card shows? Do I even bring them to card shows? So I'm going to get into this the rest of the week on the Sports Card Strategy Show. But I think in general, one thing you can do to sort of try to get into this way of making money at card shows, if you're not attending all the time, like a lot of the people I've been talking about, but you're more like us, and you're going every once in a while, I think one thing is that you can get deals. Like everyone does want to sell at comps now. So, I mean, there's some like most vendors will be pricing their cards 20% over comps initially, but you can get them down to comps or under comps because everybody knows the culture at card shows now. Like for something to move, you have to price it to move. If the dealer doesn't have it priced to move, they don't want to move it. So just move on to the next person. But I was able to pick up an AR Prism Silver PSA 10 and a Will Levis Prism Silver PSA 10 for a total of $650. So if you look at that, like the AR is $450 and the Levis is $200, I'm up a little bit since that transaction. And I think I'm up a little bit more since I bought that a few days ago, cash from the dealer, than I was. I think at the time I was up maybe like $15. I think now I might be up like $50 or $60 because it is that time of year, I think. So getting those Prism Silver PSA 10s, I think those are the ones that I would recommend buying at card shows. If you buy those at comps, because you can't do anything else, then I think you can make money online with those because of all the reasons you and Andy talked about.
Yeah. And here you have the AR at $500 for the Prism Silver PSA 10. And you can see where back in May, that was going for $350. And now it's up to $500, and you were able to snipe it at the show. Go ahead, Carter.
No. This is what's really interesting to me. So going back to the original question, what do you, outside of repackers, because Paul, I'll tell you this, this weekend at the Shreveport Card Show, I stayed with one of my really good buddies, and he does high-end signings with big-name athletes, Jalen Ramsey, so on and so on. And he was talking about his frustration with the repackers just everywhere. So outside of that, because there was a lot of people talking about that, a big complaint that I had received from people that were there was just too many vintage tables. How do you deal with that? I know you don't do as much vintage. We don't really do any vintage here at all. Did you see the same thing? And they also said of those vintage tables, the modern stuff they had, it was just priced way, way, way too high, and it just turned a lot of people off.
Yeah. Vintage, I just like, it's so funny. I have my brain wired now where I see vintage and it's almost just like this black hole that I'm gazing into. So I just like keep walking. I don't do anything with vintage. Like it doesn't none of those cards register with me. I just keep walking until I see a table with the cards on it that register. And I was looking for football. I mean, you mentioned it. I do all sports, but I was looking for football because I'm looking for stuff that I can move in the next 1 to 3 months. Like I don't want to wait for a basketball card to go up. I definitely don't want to buy baseball right now. Anything other than those 3 sports is really hard to move. So I'm looking for football. And I think, so you're right. Whoever told you that was spot on. That's a good take. There was a lot of vintage. And I think, it's kind of funny because like the vintage tables were not as crowded. So you guys remember Chicago, it was hard to move around. Like you couldn't really move around. In Cleveland, it was a little bit different. It was just as crowded, but the committee did a better job, I think, separating vintage from modern in a bunch of different places. And so you could actually like have some room to breathe. So I kind of used the vintage spaces to just kind of like get my backpack off and like stretch out a little bit because there was some room. So, I mean, in that regard, like that's what I use the vintage for.
Yeah, that was the number one complaint outside of the repackers. Filthy was there as well. I knew you had his comment up there. I really want to go back to Chicago next year. I mean, that was the funnest weekend I've had. I had more fun there than at my wedding. I really had that much fun in Chicago. So I hate that, I missed out. I know a lot of our viewers hate that they missed it as well. But what would you say, Paul, was the biggest difference? Because a lot of us were in Chicago last year. From then until now, were there any big hobby takeaways, positive or negative, over the past year?
What I look at is like the card show culture has changed. And I talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the show. I think it continues to evolve to where at the National this year, it was very different than last year in that you had multiple opportunities to essentially be the vendor. And so I think I'll explain what I mean by that. You can't buy a table anymore, really. It's impossible to buy a table.
And before you continue, there's probably some people that are saying, well, what does buy a table mean? I'm guessing that means you buy the person's collection and you just take their spot. Is that what that means?
I'm sorry. That's what it could mean. That would be like the kind of dual meaning. But what I meant is you can't really get in to set up as a vendor anymore, right? You can't it's almost like trying to inherit Boston Red Sox season tickets. You have to have been on the list as a vendor for the last, 10, 15 years to even get a table anymore. So then, and that's how you really arbitrage at shows. You set up a table as a vendor, and you can do that at just about any other show but the National. In fact, a bunch of people that were vendors got kicked out, and they created their own after show, which I'll speak on real quick in a second.
Oh,
but I want to talk about like how do you arbitrage if you can't be a vendor? One thing that was different, the biggest difference I saw in this year's show versus last year's show is that if you think about the concept of when you're sitting down and you have your cards laid out, you are the vendor, you are the pawn shop. But when you walk up to someone's cards, you're the customer. So you need to be in a power position at these shows in order to make money at the show. So it's kind of funny because there were multiple places you could do that. You could do that in the VIP room. You could do that at these after shows, which I can comment on here in a second. Or you could just like find a spot somewhere in a hallway somewhere on like there was room there. They had chairs lined up everywhere along the walls. Like, so I didn't see opportunity to do as much of that in Chicago. I know a lot of people were trying to do that at trade nights in Chicago and they got shut down. So I think that was another big difference in this year's show is they did a really good job at the trade nights. So at the trade nights, at the after show, which is essentially just the unofficial trade nights that people had. It's just, if you want to make money instead of walking around to people's cards, find your own spot, lay your cards out, and play the comp game.
Yeah.
Paul, one thing I've noticed on eBay is that there's been a lot of 2024 Panini National exclusive cards actually released. And like I'm a little bit like griefed about this because I'm still waiting on the bulk of my Panini instance from the NFLPA Rookie Premier event. So clearly they prioritized the National. Can you talk about these cards, like how people got them, like how common they are? I see some of them are serial numbered, but what was that situation like at the National?
Yeah, so I'll comment on how people got them in a second. But Andy, you're absolutely right. And I'm upset too, because I've heard you talking on the Football Card Quest for a few months now. I bought those Panini cards as well. So I'm still waiting on mine. I put in like almost $600 into those cards. And I bought a bunch of different ones. I'm excited about them. And I said, for my guy, Andy Kaysen, AC, Football Card Quest, first thing I'm doing when I hit the show floor on Wednesday, straight to Panini customer service. And I went up there for you, brother. And I talked to him about it, and you will not be surprised. They basically said, well, this is an online order issue. It's a production issue. We're not the online customer service people. So you have to ask a question of the online customer service people. And so I said, wait a minute. We've all already done that. This was 2 months ago. And the guy's just like, I know, I'm sorry. Like, it's just a production issue. So it's everyone's issue, but the person that you're talking to's issue, which is ridiculous.
But here, take a pack of National exclusive cards.
Right, exactly. Well, the silver pack, right? Like we see Ricky Pearsall, National Silver Pack promo right there on your screen. And so the silver pack, there's a bunch of different ways to get the silver pack. It's basically like a scavenger hunt. You have to essentially they partner with distributors, whether it be Steel City Collectibles, Dave and Adams. All the top distributors were selling wax, and essentially they would have a deal. Some of them had a deal with Topps. Some of them had a deal with Panini. Some of them had a deal with both. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to move their wax. So they would sell their wax. For example, Kendall McKee, our boy Lefty, you know him. Lefty went up and bought a box of Bowman 2024 baseball from Steel City Collectibles. And the reason why he bought that, in addition to the fact that he wanted to rip it, was because it came with the ability to get a Topps silver pack. Now we're talking about Panini, but essentially Panini did the same thing. And so to get the silver pack, you'd have to go buy Panini wax somewhere from a distributor like that, take it over to Panini, and in Kendall's case, to Topps, and exchange it for a free silver pack. Now the catch is they'd have to cut the cellophane wrapper off of your wax before they gave you the silver pack, because they don't want people buying the sealed wax, flipping the sealed wax, and getting the silver pack. So that's how people got these. And you're right, man. I mean, like, a lot of savvy people at the National know to go ahead and just get the silver pack, rip it. In these guys' cases, you know, they did well. Some of them got Bryce Young, some of the other first-round draft picks with the RC Shield. I saw Spencer Rattler. I'm waiting on him from Panini Instant. And they're doing well. They're doing well moving them. So me, when I rip wax, I always get slaughtered. So I don't do that anymore.
Paul, in terms of like just sports demand, do you think like if you took a step back, because you do all sports, do you think like football cards, NFL branded, I guess, football cards are the top sport? Or is it still very much, diversified with baseball and basketball?
I think everyone's kind of doing their own sport. Like when you walk around, that's the other thing, because Carter asked about the tables, right? What's at the tables? Other than a lot of vintage tables at the National, another big kind of change I noticed this year is you had a table would either be really strong in basketball and really crappy with the other sports, or they'd be really strong in baseball, crappy with the other sports, really strong in football, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it feels to me like there's not many people doing all sports. We even had somebody in the live chat, I think it was Chad Dyer said, he's only doing Prism football. I think people are specializing, and I think that's smart. So myself, for example, I'm focused more on football than anything else because football is the easiest to move. Football, like, so as it relates to, say, the growth of football, I would say football is by far the easiest to move. Like, it's always hot. We talk about this a lot. We talk about how there is no off season. Like, started as a fantasy football company, right? Football Card Quest is so successful because of, the no off season in football. Yeah. So you can move football cards all year. You can't do that with basketball. There are massive dead periods for basketball and baseball. That's why football is my number one for sure.
Yeah. So I think for me, one debate that a lot of people have been having is the in-person autograph. And I know, like, the national, I really didn't even look to see who all was signing here. Paul, have you seen that debate evolve between, like, sticker autos that are coming out of a pack to now in-person autos? Because one thing I've noticed just from looking at Facebook groups is people are preparing their pins better, and these in-person autos are looking better than ever. Like this Joe Burrow event I got to go to a few years ago was the Joe Burrow Kaboom was signed with, like, this orange paint pen. It was gorgeous, and I normally don't love those kinds of cards signed. So what's your vantage point on something like that?
I think with this, it's simple. I think there's a market for both of them. I think collectors don't care. Collectors will go with event signed stuff. And at the National, there's the TriStar Autograph Pavilion is massive. They bring in everybody, and they have everyone from Barry Sanders to Ric Flair signing autographs, at these events. And so then you have the flippers. The flippers just want the pack pulled stuff. Like, flippers don't want any kind of event signed stuff. So I think it's hard to say who has the bigger market. I just think it's different markets, right? Different people. Now, one other area that I thought of you guys is what they're calling the Leafs and the Onyxes and the wild cards of the world are calling player licensed cards with autos, right? Like, the three of us have always said unlicensed because they don't have and you've got Sage. You guys talk about Sage, right? So there's all these different companies that don't have the league licensing, the team licensing, the PA licensing, all that. I sat down with Wildcard, and they were on my flight from Nashville to Cleveland. And
really? Okay.
I sat down with them and did an interview on the show that I dropped yesterday. So everybody go check it out. Sports Card Strategy Show. Interviewed Wildcard and talked to their head of NIL, like going and signing NIL players. And it was interesting to hear his take on how we call it unlicensed versus what they say player licensed. And they wholeheartedly believe that market is blowing up. So I'm going to flip it back on you guys. Like,
yeah,
what do you guys see as it relates to the Sages, the Wild Cards, the Leafs of the world? Are there opportunities for people that do what we do, essentially try to make money flipping, right? I mean, you guys collect too. I don't collect, but everybody out there in the Football Card Quest audience collects. So it's kind of like if a Leaf or an Onyx or a Sage doesn't go up, you still like it for your PC. That's cool. But I mean, do you guys see those brands with the player license stuff growing in value?
I hope so, because 75 to 80% of my collection is just Leaf. Like because it was just cheaper and I didn't really care and I was just going rogue. But no, people just don't like it. Like I don't know exactly why that's the case. That was my experience at the National last year. I don't really care because I love the cards, and even though I try to sell some of them, it's not really that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. But I'm cheering for Wild Card. I've got to go check this interview out.
Yeah, Andy, I think if you look at each player's market individually, there's some players that these cards do really well for. CJ Stroud's a prime example because in more and more Fanatics exclusive athletes, these cards are going to pick up more and more steam. And you look at those cards from CJ Stroud that are autographed before he signs his deal with Fanatics. kind of like Marvin Harrison Jr., those kind of things. So these college uniform cards or the Onyx cards, the unlicensed cards, hold really good value. And when you look at it, a lot of people like, I see a sweet spot in the football card market of in the autograph section. I think people love that rookie autograph, and especially when you consider some of these capture like an initial penmanship that can change quite a bit. Like we noticed, I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. It was somebody who used to sign their full name, and then over time, I think it was my guy Rashad White on the Bucks. And like, if you go back and look at his Sage card, he like signed his full name, and then it just went to like an R White, and then it keeps getting quicker and quicker and quicker, as he signs more and more cards. So there's a value there placed on the initial autograph, and a lot of these guys are delivering cards to the market when Panini is dragging their feet and taking forever. So that's a big deal as well. So you can flip them before. Like there's been so many rookies. Like I look at Ben Sinnott as just a random guy, but he's a tight end who's ascending as a rookie. And we saw what rookie tight ends did last year in Sam Laporta. And this guy doesn't have any other cards except for 2024 Sage and some of these Leaf cards now. So they're doing really well. For like the primary focus of his market right now. So I do see these things have a place in the hobby for a long time to come.
I love your point, Andy, about the bigger manufacturers dragging their feet. And I got some insights into that when I talked to Jay from Wildcard. So yeah, definitely we're on the same page there. So yeah, I'd love it if everybody goes and checks out that episode from yesterday. And actually, props to Family Burliner, right? Saying Super Glow. I mean, that's true. Super Glow is another one of these brands. I made some money flipping a Marvin Harrison Jr. Super Glow before the Bowman release came out. So Andy's right. It's like, if you can get into these cards before the other bigger manufacturers come out with them, college players, pro players, whatever, you can make some money on them. So I think, Carter, you might see your Leaf collection go up in value. I mean, fingers crossed, brother.
I hope so. Andy, is there any? Well, actually, I did want to get into the. Well, yeah. First off, that was cool. You going on national card radio here, sports card investor. It's pretty cool stuff. Obviously it could be intimidating when you see like these huge boosts like they have and Fanatics and all of that. And obviously there's this huge Fanatics fest where their A-list lineup is just absolutely insane. Your thoughts on like the corporate nature of the hobby now? Like, cause I mean, these people, like you're around, they know you. They obviously I cut a spot on my show with you talking to Gary freaking V. Your thoughts on, Fanatics and like the conglomeration. I didn't use that word. I just made up a word, honestly. Your thoughts on that aspect of it, because that could be very overwhelming when you see them in these huge setups, because you don't see that at any other card show.
You nailed it, man. It can be very overwhelming and intimidating. And the advice I'd give everybody out there is, whether it's a regular show or the National or Fanatics Fest, don't be afraid to go up and just talk to people and just introduce yourself. These people want to hear from you all. I mean, you all are the heartbeat of the hobby, regardless of what you do. And one thing I'm really happy about that I've seen change over probably the last 4 years is, I think 4 years ago, there was a lot of, even at these shows, there was a lot of judgment about like, are you a collector? Are you an investor? Are you a flipper? Well, collectors are better than flippers. And if you don't know the details of the set, then like you don't belong here and all this stuff. I don't really see that anymore. And I don't know why that is, but I'm happy about it. And I think even from the corporate perspective, I saw a lot of everyone that I met and that I continue to meet and know at all these different, large brands in the hobby that have these massive setups. I mean, dude, the amount of money Whatnot spends at the National has to be more money than anyone else. And then you've got PSA and Fanatics and Panini, Topps, everybody else, right? And like Dave and Adams, like their podcast, The Chase. I mean, it's like a ESPN studio. I mean, people are spending enormous amounts of money. Point is, go up to them. They're just people. They're just people, and you're the customer. So even though Panini kind of blows us off with the RPS first look stuff, you know, they still want to talk to you. They're still going to be friendly. Everybody out there's friendly. I would say, like, let your curiosity and your passion for the hobby overtake any fear that you might have because you feel overwhelmed. Just go talk to people.
Are you going to Fanatics Fest in New York?
I am, and I wasn't going to go because it looked like too much of a fan event the way they were marketing it. And I kind of like looked at how they were marketing it, and I was like, is there going to be even any card stuff here? And then I talked to people, and the vibe I got from everyone I talked to is that, yes, they're not leading the marketing with the card show portion, but that there will be a significant card show portion. And that's why I ended up just going ahead and deciding to go. So I'll be there and I'll report, but we could do another one. I'll tell you guys how Fanatics Fest was.
Yeah, I need you to have a video crew with you because I really want to. I am so fascinated with how that one's going to go down. Will it challenge the national or whatever? I'm very interested. Well, once again, Paul, nooffseason.com. All of my channels are under his umbrella as well. So I'm really excited that you got to have this opportunity. Check out his interviews and all that stuff. And Paul, we'll let you have the final word, man. You're a part of our network, buddy. Or unless, Andy, if you had another question for him,
I do. Okay, and this is, I think, a great question because, you know, as being part of the nooffseason.com sports card network and being sponsored by CGC Cards, a grading, I heard that CGC really stepped it up at the national, Paul. So I've got to ask you, what was this grading contest that they had going on at the national? Can you tell us about that?
Well, I sat down and talked with Andy Broom. I had a great conversation with Andy Broom, the VP of CGC and overseeing all of their grading. And I can tell you that, you know, they've got 9 different new sizes of slabs to hold some of the older vintage cards and the newer cards. They've got a new label that you guys may already know about, but the JSA autograph authentication will also not only authenticate the auto, but grade the auto. So there's all the options that you would get at any other grading company, and a cool new label as well with that on there. I met Jimmy Spence, super cool guy, and just down to earth. He signed one of his business cards for me. So, I mean, if you're in the autograph business, you got to apparently have cool penmanship. The grading contest you asked about, I'm not familiar with, but I did spend some time at the CGC booth and you know, got some of the other updates from them. So sorry, I don't know about the grading contest, but hopefully it was cool.
Well, maybe one of our guys can share it in the chat because I got that from one of our guys, James, in Discord server. Sent me that screenshot of you with Jeff Wilson from Sports Card Investor and said CGC is really stepping it up. Maybe it was something that Jeff highlighted in one of his videos. Apparently, I guess they had some kind of a grading contest there. So I just thought that was really cool. And I know they are stepping it up big time with that purchase of JSA and just all their different holders, and they're doing a great job. So
yeah, and I did see James Wainwright in the live chat mentioned, I was going to say Mojo. So Mojo Sports LLC on Instagram and YouTube. I mean, he's a great guy. Like, he's a great guy. Like, there's a lot of great content creators that I've met that are actually really good people, and he's one of them. And yeah, he was at CGC, and James was saying in the live chat that he was kind of the one that did some content on it. So I did see him over there. And DJ Ski was over there. DJ Ski was also over at Arena Club. So, I mean, CGC had it going on. They did step it up this year for sure. So I'm hoping to help them grow, as I know you are as well.
Well, we got to get you gave out a ton of hobby tips of the week, but before you skedaddle here, is there a play that is just floating in that bright, world-traveled, used to live in Spain, Nashville skull of yours?
There's always a play. I mean, you know, for more, you got to check out the formula at nooffseason.com. But I mean, I'm looking at like, I'll give you guys some insights to how I do the formula. So I'm thinking for football, you want to go quarterbacks, you want to go already graded, And, I think you can go out on a limb with some of them. The tricky part is going to be actually finding the card at the target price. But if you look at don't slaughter me here because I'm not like a Daniel Jones guy, but like when I'm going through my process, I'm looking at what Prism Silver rookie PSA 10s, for example, like we talked about, are down significantly. And all that has to happen is for the football season to start again for the card to go up. So this has nothing to do with how Daniel Jones will perform, but I'll just throw this out there. Like his 2019 Prism Silver PSA 10 is down 40%. So the last sale was 2 days ago for $60. It's only a pop 210, so it's going to be hard to find that card. There's a lot of examples of this, and we have them all at the formula at nooffseason.com. But for example, like all that has to happen for this to go up to 100 or 120 is just him to be on the field, right? And for him to throw to your guy Malik Neighbors, right? I mean, it's just and so like I think that's what I'm looking at, Carter. I'm trying to be unemotional about the player. I'm trying to look at the prices for starting quarterbacks. I mean, you've got Aiden O'Connell, 2023 Prism Hyper out of 175 PSA 10, down $55 right now. So I'm looking for stuff like you've got margin in cards like that to move again online. And if you want to take it to a show, then there's going to be less margin at a show, but you don't have to pay the marketplace fees.
Aiden O'Connell.
Again, not emotionally tied to the player. You want to talk about players? I think Jordan Love is up and to the right all season. I'll flag plan on that. I think Jordan Love, I think he's up and to the right all season. I think Burrow, I know that's Captain Obvious. I think Burrow's up and to the right all season. So in terms of like who's going to have a good year, those are my guys. Now I did talk about backup QB strategy a little bit.
Yeah.
And I hit that on my show yesterday. I think my top two guys there are, I think Sam Howell is a safe one. And I think Hendon Hooker is a good flyer. Now I don't want Jared Goff to go down as a Lions fan, but Hendon Hooker is the most sold. He's the most liquid backup quarterback. I've been doing my football card quick market report. That's not as good as your guys, but every Tuesday I do a football card market report. It's like a 10-minute show. And Hendon Hooker he's been the top most liquid backup QB from a sales volume standpoint for like the last year. So I think anything happens in Detroit with any kind of rumor, anything like that, Hendon Hooker's up and to the right for sure.
I like the Hendon Hooker play, but I hate because I know Carter is also a little bit been on Sam Howell earlier in the season, but this is the latest from Sam Howell's camp. He has been alarmingly inaccurate, and so far, days before the team puts on full pads, the Commanders starter last season is closer to competing with third QB PJ Walker to be the backup than he is for any of Smith's playing time this year. So he's having a terrible start to his training camp. Just a little training camp buzz. Not good there about Sam Howell so far.
Wow, that's shocking.
That was as of yesterday. So
yeah, wow. So Seahawks don't have a great offensive line, and that is not good for Sam Howell, who might be the most sackable quarterback in the history of the NFL. He takes a lot of bad sacks. Regino is a little bit better at the sack avoidance. But yeah, I guess if Sam Howell's prices were to dip a little bit lower, I might dabble.
Let me throw one more thing out there, guys. Like position players. You guys talk about position players, and that's part of the reason why I love this show so much. I saw Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. They're not cheap, but we know they're like top 5 in PPR drafts consistently. And you guys do a better job than anyone else talking about the correlation between fantasy ADP hype and card prices. And you guys nailed it with Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. I've bought them all off season, and I was able to move out of all of their cards at the National in cash transactions for probably like a 20% total profit, which if you think about eBay fees on those kinds of cards, it really could be more like a 30 to 35% total profit because I'm not paying those fees with the shipping. So great. I know, I don't know if those are specifically your calls, but I know that those are guys you've talked about. I know that you talk about position players. So I think, and I know like a dream of the football card quest is for the position players to all get a little bit more love in the hobby as a whole. And I see it with more guys. Amon-Ra St. Brown, another one. I mean, he's hot, so I'm not saying necessarily buy into those guys now, but hopefully you guys have picked them up throughout the offseason and are ready to move them.
Let's go. Hector's a big AOC guy. So yeah, I'm really pumped up. So once again, nooffseason.com, check them out. Obviously all the stuff I do once again is under his umbrella, and that's outside of the football card world. Paul is probably the hardest working entrepreneur out there. When I saw it with Jeff Wilson, I was like, man, I got to go blow your Instagram up about this, man. That was pretty damn awesome. But yeah, Paul, we'd love to have you on again soon, and keep chugging along, brother.
You too, man. Thanks so much for having me, Carter. That meant a lot to me when I saw that comment on that reel. I'm like, I got to get these IG reels going. Like, It's like there's so much stuff to do. And when you made that comment on there about the most slept on hobby content creator, I was like, that's all the validation I need from my guy Carter. So let's go.
Slept on. Yeah, you know one thing that was very interesting. So obviously I was in a complete juxtaposition from the National. I was set up at a smaller show, and obviously there's just not going to be as much foot traffic and something like that compared to the National. And man, it's a lot more random. Like and this is why I wanted to bring this up at the end, is a lot of this stuff applies to the bigger shows. Okay. So if you go to the smaller show, just trying to do the repacking thing and stuff like that, yeah, you're going to have success potentially, but it's not going to be as easy going to buy someone else's table and then go to the next table, because that's like a table of like 40 people. Where the National, you not only have all these tables, you also have all these other people that you would be willing to buy from. So yeah, it's very important to keep that in mind. Like the size of the show matters as well. But yeah, man, we appreciate you big time. We'll be talking to you, man.
Thanks again for having me on. Last word of advice for anyone going to the National in the future: just any cards you bought online to sell online at a selling marker, just don't bring them to the National, and then you won't be frustrated by getting comped to death. But guys, you guys are the best. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm always here to help you out, whatever you need.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
all right,
Paul.
Paul. We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right. Have a good one.
You the man.
Yeah, Andy, for me, when it comes to the National, so we do have quite a few people in here that went, and Filthy, of course, is one of them. Look, I'll be straight up with you, Andy. There is a piece of me that feels like I missed out on something really big this past weekend, as is the case with every National. Even when I wasn't in football cards, when I was younger and I would go to the National with my dad every single year, it was so much fun. It's just sports memorabilia, just being around all of it. But Andy, it seemed like there were a lot of people complaining about Cleveland, and there's also a big piece of me that was also happy that I didn't go, because it is expensive, the traffic and all the other mumbo jumbo.
And we're just gonna make it twice as big next year.
Yeah, we
back
got
in Chicago,
in the Chi-town.
After the Bears take down the NFC North and Caleb Williams' first season, that city's gonna be lit.
Let's go. Andy, anything football card related before we get into our own plays of the week?
I was getting ready to hop straight into play of the week. I thought you were gonna ask me my play of the week.
Well, yeah, I'll go and give you mine. I'm interested in Zach Moss in the Bengals offense, and I understand I am very anti-running back, but Andy, I think people I think Joe Mixon is a good player. I really do think he is a good player. But I felt these last couple of years he was more so propped up by his situation. And Joe Mixon, when you look at a lot of the advanced stats, he was kind of just average. He was getting by on volume. Now, full disclosure, I'm still taking Joe Mixon because the Texans' offense is going to be nuclear this year. But Zach Moss steps into this role. And yeah, you have Chase Brown going into year 2 that will eat into a snap share. And the Bengals brass is talking a lot about Chase Brown and how much they do like him. But I think Zach Moss outperforms him. Zach Moss is a running back who's really good out of shotgun formation. Guess what, Andy? Zach Moss, that's where Joe Burrow is most comfortable playing, out of shotgun. I feel Zach Moss is going to be a really good fit for the Bengals. I think he's a steal in the 80s in your fantasy drafts. And, I see nice select Prism autos go for what, $5, $6, $7, $8 out the door in total. So I think Zach Moss is going to be one of the league winners in fantasy football this year, and will finish as a pretty solid RB2. So Zach Moss, my play of the week, Andy.
So my play of the week is going to be a pretty chalky running back. He's actually really chalky in fantasy. And when I went and looked up how cheap his rookie ticket autos were, I was really blown away. And that's Travis Etienne. Like I look at Travis Etienne on the Jaguars. And by the way, through 2 training camp practices, the Jaguars offense turned the ball over 6 times in the red zone. This was as of this, that was from Saturday's training camp highlights news. Shout out to 32 beat writers there on Twitter, where I got that from. So yeah, they're already struggling. I think if their practices continue to trend this way, that's even more reason for them to hand the ball off to Travis Etienne, who led the NCAA in broken tackles back in 2019. Right, Carter? A guy who's just incredibly explosive, a guy who missed his entire rookie season with a Liz Frank injury. So he really didn't debut until 2022. And they took him in the first round. He's paired up with his college quarterback. This is a very friendly system for especially a pass catching running back. But Travis Etienne does a lot of things well. And one of those is taking plays at house when he bounces to the outside. This guy is just a really good running back that I think is just hitting his prime. Like this guy is like just hitting 25 years old. He's being taken right now in the first 3 rounds of fantasy drafts, but you could argue because of the absence and the lack of performance from Tank Bigsby, they didn't spend any, if any. I think maybe they spent a super late pick on a running back this year, but I'm looking at the depth chart with Dearness Johnson and Tank Bigsby. Like there's nobody there to threaten any type of workload from Travis Etienne. And I think he has the best season he's had in his career this year. And his base rookie ticket autos are $20. You compare it to guys around him, like Kyron Williams taken in that same range. His base rookie ticket autos are $40. And Kyron got significant competition added to the depth chart. And Etienne sitting there, you got Saquon with silver prism autos at 120, or Jahmyr Gibbs at 200, Jonathan Taylor at 100. And you got Travis Etienne sitting there with $20 base rookie ticket autos. I mean, that's just, I can't think of a better running back play right now than Travis Etienne. Chalky. I mean, chalky in terms of like, maybe the upside is not crazy high because of the division that the Jags are in terms of like playoff potential. But I'm not really looking for that. I'm looking to more like make that Raheem Mostert type of flip from last year, or the Jerome Ford flip from last year. Those kind of flips that we made last year. I'm looking to do that with Etienne this year, just based on his performance.
I'm with you. I like Etienne. I'm trying to draft more of him. I think a few of those 3rd and 4th round running backs in fantasy drafts are also pretty solid bets. Andy, I'll be getting screwed. I get that 1.8, 1.9, 1.10, 1.11, 1.12 every time. And I hate drafting there. I want the elite players in that 1.4 to 1.5 range. With that said, there are a lot of running backs in that 3rd round tier that I love. Andy, I do, and I want to open this chat up as well. I did make a pretty big trade this past weekend. Traded one of my Jaden Daniels autos, one's the national exclusive autos from last year in his LSU uniform, and I moved into a Bryce Young silver prism. and another rare Ray Lewis auto to go along with it. Andy, Bryce Young Silver Prisms go for $50. It's anywhere from $50 to $60 to $70.
So cheap.
And I want you to guess what CJ Stroud Silver Prisms go for. Just a basic, not the short print variation, but just CJ Stroud raw silver prism.
That's like, at this point, it's probably like a $400 card.
Yes.
I mean, yes.
Here's one for $405. Let me see the last one for $325.
Yeah.
So look, I'm not saying Bryce Young's, and look, and I know this kind of looks like me saving face because I had Bryce over CJ in my pre-draft process. And I'll always take the L. CJ Stroud's really good, and Bryce Young is just not at that level. But Andy, that is a supersonic gap between the two of them. And look, number one overall quarterbacks, how many of them just suck? There's not many. There's really not. Like, I mean, Baker Mayfield eventually found himself. Jared Goff eventually found himself. And that was as time moved on, their weapons just got better and better. I'm buying some Bryce Young. I might buy another Silver Prism and double down on this. Even though Trusty, I have faded him. He's small. He's not the most athletic guy. Trusty Hector, I totally agree with you. Jaden Daniels over Bryce Young, but I have a lot of Jaden Daniels stuff, so I wanted to get my hands on. It was an LSU fan as well. He was looking for his first Jaden auto, so I wanted to pass along and share the wealth. But he had a Bryce Young Silver Prism. I was like, why not? Let's roll the dice with this. So there you go.
Yeah, think about it, Carter. You know, Baker Mayfield had his best career year under Dave Canales last year, and Geno Smith had his best career year under Dave Canales the year before. That was the Geno Smith coming out party, and now Dave Canales is in Carolina, so we could be seeing the true rookie season of Bryce Young, maybe.
And of course, Annoy tries to annoy me bringing up Jamarcus Russell.
Jamarcus. Well, Jamarcus just couldn't say no to the second serving of whatever it was he was eating, man.
Jay Russ will tell you he did that to himself, right? Trust me, there's probably not a day that goes by that he doesn't know how big of an opportunity he wasted. Once again, I'm not saying Bryce Young is just going to be terrible, but people are viewing him right now like he is as bad as he was last year, when that's just not the case, right? There's been some interesting Xavier Leggett buzz in training camps there. So there you go. I appreciate it.
Honestly, it's impressive that Bryce Young didn't get horrifically injured. You know,
right.
Because a guy, for as small as he is, took some serious hits last year in his rookie season. And that was really like his welcoming party. All right, we're going to welcome you, Short King, to the NFL behind a weak offensive line and some really screwed up play calling. So, I mean, he's really got nowhere to go but up from last year, in my opinion.
I also want to shout out Sty Cards. I believe, and I have to go back and look. I got a doctor's appointment coming up, so my mind is like kind of all over the place here. I believe it was either Sty Cards or Houdat Cards in the Discord, Andy, sent a huge SGC order in, and not SGC, CGC, excuse me. And Andy, those slabs look beautiful. Shout out to CGC, all the support. I'm not just saying that just to say it. They look good. I was like, man, I kind of want to send some PC cards in. So shout out to our viewers supporting those who support us. So that is really good stuff. Andy, I'll let you get the final word in as before we wrap it up, man.
I appreciate all you guys who have stuck around, continue to support us through the past month and a half. As you know, this has really been like the primary live stream and video that we put out on a weekly basis. But I did put out a video, and I do plan out to get back in all of our weekly series that we used to do that you guys love so much. we're going to get back into the groove of those. Now I'm getting settled in here to my new place. So I'm really excited about training camp and got a lot of activity starting to move pretty significantly here for players in the NFL. So this is that time of the year. It's time to step on a gas pedal, and looking forward to it, man. Good luck at your doctor's appointment today, Carter.
Let's go. Good luck at the doctor's appointment.
I don't know what you're getting done or what you're getting checked out.
You're violating a HIPAA violation. You're trying to talk me in. I honestly, I'm getting a boob job. That's it. I'm getting some melons here, Kardashian style. But yeah, there are a few of you I've seen in the comment section say, hey, can you help me evaluate, my collection or this card or that card? The best way to do that, and I know it supports Andy, I get nothing from this. It's joining the Football Card Discord. Go to footballcardquest.com, part of the nooffseason.com network. It's our Patreon service. Just sign up there, and you get a one-on-one consultation from Andy or me when you sign up. So make sure you check that out. If not, you can send me a message on Twitter or Instagram, and I will happily give it a quick look-see. So we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Appreciate you. Peace.